Hey folks, welcome to the channel. And in this video, I want to walk you through some of the latest updates in Microsoft Fabric, and they're gonna level up your workflows, especially in the data engineering. And I have stumbled upon these features when I was working in one of the POCs, so they're really nice. So I felt like I should share the same with you, but of course in a mock-up environment. So yeah, let's talk about it. The first one we've got is the high concurrency mode, which is really good if you're running, multiple notebooks, and it kind of allows you to share a Spark session between the notebooks. This means you can attach the notebooks to a shared Spark session instead of starting the new session each time. Um, I find it really great for the development workloads that where notebooks, start up instantly without an overhead of creating new session all the time. But few things you need to keep in mind. The first one, you cannot mix and match the Spark configuration, which means the notebooks needs to stay in the same workspaces and needs to be connected in the same lakehouse. So you cannot share the session between workspaces or lakehouse. And also the high concurrency mode sharing is only within the single users. So notebooks won't share the session between the others users as well. This is a little bit different than Synapse. In Synapse, you can also take over the existing sessions from the previous session, but they got disconnected. Now you can share and access the session between the notebook without getting disconnected. So yeah, let's take a look. So first up, we're going to enable the high concurrency mode by going to workspace setting, and you can see I've enabled it by clicking on data engineering and science by navigating to Spark Compute. And if I zoom a little bit, you can see I've enabled it from here. So now this will allow the notebooks to start sharing the same compute amongst them. And this most likely do not work if you have trial capacity. So I'm using the F2 capacity, which comes with a single node support. So it's really good for the mockup environment. Now let's jump to a sample notebook, which we're gonna see in the later video as well. So I've started the high concurrency session by going to run, and if I click it up here, you can clearly start it by clicking up new high concurrency session. So I've started this previously, and you can see now my existing notebook is connected to this high concurrent session. Now I'll show you that if I have a second notebook like this, which is a test notebook, and if I go to run tab and if I try to utilize this existing high concurrent session, I can clearly attach this notebook to this. So I can run this notebook and I can run the cells in each one, and they'll share the same computation in the same session, which gives me an instant startup time. And I can run this here as well. So you can see that right now 3 out of 5 notebooks has been attached to this high concurrent session. Same from here. Now I'll show you another example where I created the notebook connected to the different lakehouse. When I try to attach this to the session, we can see what happens. So if you see that I have this high concurrent session attached to this notebook resources, and if I come it up here, and you see it's been attached to bronze lakehouse, and if I'll try to access this high concurrent session, it's not available to me. It's been grayed out. Now I can show you if I try to use the same session and attach the same session in a library where I'm trying to install libraries at the notebook level. So I have, let's say, a dependency on notebook level. Even with the different libraries, as long as the lakehouse matches, which is the notebook resources, I can still use the same session. So if I try to install something up here, this is just like a mock-up example, I can still use that. Now let's try this in a final notebook and try and use the same session and try to read some Packet files. Let's see. So you can see session has been attached in 1 second, and I can read the Packet file instantly. So when I'm done, I can also detach the session. I can detach to the standard session. So this will kind of allow me to switch back to standard session with the dedicated resources. And in the all run menu, I can monitor my high concurrent sessions as well, just to see that which notebooks has been attached to this high concurrence session. So this is like more of an high level workflow by enabling high concurrency, start a shared session, attach the notebooks, monitor the shared jobs, and detach the notebooks when you need the isolated resources again. So this sounds good for getting like more mileage out of your Spark resources. And with this new feature, what I understand, you can add up like up to 10 notebooks running together. However, remember that the Fabric is in preview, so you can expect to see like new changes and fixes as it develops. But nevertheless, let's talk about another feature, which is load to table feature, which I think now got more powerful. So previously, if you have used this, you could upload one file at a time into the table, but now you can like add the whole folder of files once into the delta table. And not only this, you can append the new data into the existing table instead of creating new ones. So yeah, let's see that one. So I've navigated to my landing lake house, and if I go to my file section where I usually keep my raw and unwrangled data for initial analysis. And if you're like me, and who played with this before, you were used to going into the folders and right clicking on the single file and load into the table for ad hoc data preparation. But now what you can do, you can also go at the folder label as well, and right click and load to the new table. You can choose to load into the new delta table. And what it does, it gives me an option to load this recursively as well. So if I just choose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, nice naming for mockup demo. I can choose that what is my source file, which is bucket type, and then if I click on this include subfolders, it will automatically travels all the bucket file in the subfolders and import them as a delta table in the landing lakehouse over table section. So if I click on load up here, wait a little bit till it load this customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the table section as a delta table. So this kind of gives us a really nice one-click ETL kind of feeling, where you try to get acquainted with the schema or doing ad hoc preparation or something like that. So I can also go here and see how many files this delta table have. So that has one file right now. I can also choose to append new data to this existing table, rather than always have to create new one. I can come back here. I can load to table. I can choose to append this to existing table. Let's say append. I can choose customer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I can include subfolder. For some reason, I have to do this. Maybe a small fix required up here. But if I come back here and then I choose to load, it's gonna append the new data without me doing any recreation work or something like that. So if I come up here, view files, so I can see the another file up here as well. So this is also one of the nice options you now have. So another one on the top we have is sharing your items in Fabric, so which has got a lot nicer with some great updates to Lakehouse and Notebook sharing. So now you can like share access to individual Lakehouses without opening up your entire workspace. This kind of cool when you kind of grant permission on things like querying just a SQL endpoint or building Power BI reports on top of your Lakehouse data. So really nice, kind of open up the data access and collaboration without oversharing everything. And same goes for Notebook. You can like share the notebook itself. So yeah, let's see that one. So if I jump to my existing workspace where I have all the Fabric items, I can decide to share this Lakehouse with my colleague. Let's say I'll choose maybe landing Lakehouse. There you go. I'll click on this and then I enter the name of my colleague, which is Yura. I have a couple of options up here. So if I choose read all SQL endpoint data, this kind of allows him to read all the data by a SQL endpoint. And if I choose read all by Apache Spark, he can have all the permission to access the data using Apache Spark. So you can spin up the notebook, read the table or the data, and start working on it. And if I choose build reports using default dataset, it kind of give him build permission, which will allow him to build Power BI reports on top of the Lakehouse, specifically using default dataset. And I choose not to notify him by email because this is a demo. Now, if I click grant, my colleague will have a tailored access to this, and I can also share some of the notebooks. Uh, let's try to share this by more from here in manage permission, going to direct access, add user. Let's try to give him only the execute permission. So now he can only execute this notebook on demand whenever he wants to refresh the notebook, and it kind of connected to my Lakehouse, so he can refresh those table on demand on his own. So I'll just click on grant. So once I have shared the item, I can also manage the permission later on. So if I click on here, I can remove his access, or I can remove execute, and I can control more granular level of the access. So finally, one of my favorite one, which is managing all the assets for your notebook from the notebook resource feature. This kind of gives you a built-in system or built-in file system in your notebook environment to store things like code modules, files, images, configuration files, and many more. So anything you need access for your notebooks, which comes quite handy now. Let's jump to our final demo to see that. So the notebook resource panel gives now the ability to store files up in here. So if you see, this is what the notebook resource panel is. So what I've done in this built-in system, I have uploaded certain code modules, which is my logger module, which I usually use across different notebooks. And I've also uploaded certain logos, which I'm gonna show it to you in the same notebook. But in nutshell, you can upload, download, organize, and access these resources directly within your notebook using by file browser. So no more juggling around as well, or paths to module and all that stuff. Just right available to your fingertips. So you can see if I upload the files, it comes up with some file limitation as well. So currently 50 MB is allowed, and there certain file types are only allowed. So there is an even handy drag and drop feature. So if I come up here and I can show it to you, maybe let's take Fabric logo. If I just drag and drop, so it kind of generate the code automatically, which make it super easy for me to access the file in my notebook. So if I just hit run, I can use this logo quite easily. And the whole notebook where I'm trying to use the logger module is actually sending these logs to log analytics. So if you see, I have logged every step. If I have a notebook started step, I have data, how much data has been loaded, or what kind of transformation is going on. So I've sent all these logs to my log analytics, which is also a good way to keep track of your metadata. So if I run this KQL query, I can see all of this metadata has been tracked. So you can use this method, even to log your day-to-day errors and use it later for monitoring purposes. And in the notebook, I have also used this logos just for branding purposes. And to be honest, it's just a rough demo. But with this file uploaded, I can totally use them as a reference path and easily demonstrate whatever I want to do with it. So in summary, one-click ingestion, loading into Delta tables, high concurrency notebooks, easy lakehouse sharing, and one of my favorite, which is notebook resources. So some cool productivity boost for data folks like me. With that, let me know which update is your favorite one, or if you have any other Fabric tips and tricks, you can always share with me in the comments. And on that note, namaste.